Tukat tortulla ja Cavan kierti silloin maata. Silloin oli tämä Teddy-poika-villitys myöskin Suomessa kaikkein kovimmillaan. Hello, Mr. Cavan.
Hello, sir.
Really nice to meet you.
How are you? Nice to meet
How
you.
are you doing?
Great.
Great.
Having a great time.
Yeah, actually, you know, when I noticed you had this kind of a shirt, and I, you know, took one of your album covers, you got a shirt, you know, looks pretty much the same as your
That's cool.
shirt. That's true. Yeah. It's been like more than 10 years than you were really big ones in Finland.
Yes.
You followed, you toured around Finland. So
Yep.
what have you been doing this, let's say, 15 years?
We've still been rocking all the time, you know. After the Finland thing, then we did a lot in France for a number of years after that, you know, and Germany. There's still plenty of rock and roll scene going on. It's still happening out there, although it's not the big commercial thing. It's still going on. You know?
It's still going on.
Right,
How about in England? You know, back in those days, in early '80s or so, we read pretty much about, you know, like a Teddy Boy thing in London and in England. How is it going nowadays?
It's great now, but the scene has altered a bit now. Some of the best rock and roll gigs and rockabilly gigs in England now are held at the holiday camps, you know, where people go there for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they stay on the weekend, so they haven't got to drive. They can drink and party and enjoy themselves, and it's a great scene now, you know. There's still a number of small clubs doing it. There's a great one in London called Tennessee Club, holds about 400 people. Where they have a regular rockabilly thing every week, you know, and all that. It's still happening a lot. Germany's very good at the moment too. You know?
We got to visit that London thing one of these days.
Yeah, you must do that. It's in Wood Green. It's in Wood Green. Yeah.
So how about then? Still of those old days. Was it kind of a unique thing what happened in Finland, or did you notice, you know, any other countries that had that kind of a Teddy Boy thing going on? Or was Finland kind of a unique thing?
It was very strange for us actually because I mean we started back in the '60s, you know, and it was kind of in 1964 when I first had the first band together. It was called Count Dracula and the Vampires. It was kind of trying to keep the '50s thing happening, you know, because rock and roll was being squashed. It was being taken over by the pop music of Liverpool, like the Beatles and all that type of thing was happening, and rock and roll and rockabilly hardly existed, you know, was hardly known, and so the only time I could have any rock and roll from was to do it myself, you know. So eventually I started a little band which didn't last long, and then I teamed up with a boogie piano player, and we used to play for free beer. We used to play like if we did 10 songs, we got 10 beers, and that was all right. And then people seen us and asked us, you know, we would play in this club and that club. And we started to travel around a bit, and we got to London, and we found out there was a lot of sort of people who were the same as us, who felt like that the music of the '50s shouldn't have been killed, that rock and roll was a great thing. And we started playing these small clubs, you know, in London, and then from there people heard about us, and we moved up around Manchester, Birmingham, and eventually drifted onto the continent, you know. But the great thing about the Finnish thing, when we first come to Finland, we was used to playing to people that was about our age, you know, the same age as us, that grew up with the music. And when we first arrived,
the youngsters came to see you.
When we first arrived in Finland the first time, we didn't even know that we was in the charts, you know, because you know, we didn't have no proper dealing with this record company. You know, we had a lot of problems there after, you know.
I came to see you many times, you know, during that time. But I also want to take, you know, one of our this is our floor director, Parska, and the first gig he ever saw, first live gig, was your gig.
Never.
So, Parska, tell Cavan about your first live experience.
I hope I corrupted his youth.
It was in the beginning of 1980s, I think. I was about 14, 15 years old, something like that, in Tampere. That's why I asked you, have you been Tampere already? You said that this weekend you got with it. That's my hometown, and it was quite nice. There were about 200-300 people, youngsters like me, and we went crazy. It was that time that people liked lots of rock and roll, old rock and roll and rockabilly.
Rockabilly ruled.
Yeah, that's true. Really ruled.
I still got many letters and things at home which were sent to me from Finland from kids of 10 and 12 and said, you know, we had 2 Teddy boys and, you know, 2 children there with a thing like that. It was incredible, like, you know, because I mean, a lot of people at that time were saying to us, why are you playing young music, you know? We said, well, we played this music for years, you know, since we was young, you know? And it was fantastic to see that over here at the time, you know? It was great, you know?
Okay, well, thank you for visiting. You know, time is running, so we gotta go on with it.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Okay. And have a nice gig here in Finland.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Hey, I just noticed that you guys look exactly the same. What do you think about that? Are you
Yeah, we both losing our hair. I guess. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Taylor, don't get cute. Why wanna be a teddy boy suit? Find a blue jacket with a velvet cup.